Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome to the Piper Report. So Donald Trump did a speech last night, and in his speech, he addressed the nation regarding future actions of Afghanistan and what he plans to do with it. And the speech, it was not taken well by many of his supporters. The neocons won. You know the neocons win when you have Lindsey Graham going on Fox News afterwards for an interview discussing how he is so proud of the president, how this is one of the greatest things he's seen our president done, and he's saying the word president, not Donald Trump, but like really showing him deference. It's such a great idea, blah, blah, blah. And then Rand Paul gave a statement, how he disagreed with it, and Lindsey Graham kind of mocked Rand Paul. He's like, well, Paul's not a general. Paul's not a general, all this stuff. And I tried to find the Lindsey Graham interview. I cannot find it. So maybe it'll be up in a few days. I kind of been looking here, and it's nothing. And I've been searching, Fox News, Lindsey Graham, and nothing actually pops up here. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing, and a lot of people that supported Trump, they didn't like the speech either. And I will go over what I thought of it, but let's read some other people here. Like Ann Coulter says, whereas I see Trump as a threat to his reelection, report more troops to U.S. human grinder in Afghanistan. This was in a response to a tweet someone wrote, and in the tweet, they were saying that the alt-right, I think they said, is a threat to his re-election or something like that. And she wrote that. Laura Ingram, who's going to pay for it, was our measure of success. We didn't win with 100K troops. How we win with 4,000 more. I thought we were going to drain the swamp in Washington, not clear the desert in Afghanistan. Joe Walsh said 17 days, blah, 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 17 months. It doesn't matter how long we're in Afghanistan. We won't change a damn thing. I'd be more optimistic about a new Afghanistan strategy if Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and Marco Rubio didn't like it. And this is so true. All this I completely agree with 100%. America first is not Afghanistan first. And one of the things Trump said during his speech is like, we're going to stay until we win. Well, what constitutes winning? What does it mean to win the war in Afghanistan? Wasn't the original thought of winning to kill Osama bin Laden? Well, Osama bin Laden was killed in 2012, if you trust the mainstream sources. It's possible he was even killed a lot sooner. But for the sake of argument, we will say 2012. Why are we still fighting Afghanistan then? Why are we still over there? Why are the neocons still getting their way? And the neolibs? There is no war to be won in Afghanistan here. And Lindsey Graham, in his interview yesterday, he was saying a lot that Trump is making great decisions by trusting the generals, put them in charge. And Ron Paul, today I heard him say, he said something brilliantly to that. That's true. The generals should be in charge when we go to war. But they should not be in charge when we're trying to stay out of war. If we're not in war, you shouldn't take the general's advice about war. That's what we have our diplomats for. That's what we have our ambassadors for. Not generals. If we're going to war, get them to sign a declaration of war and vote on it, and then use the generals to the best of our ability. But don't let them just take over when we don't need to go to war. Trump said he was always against the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, and in his speech yesterday, he mentioned that things change when you're behind the desk, when you're behind the office of the presidency. And I can understand that to some degree. But there are people who were on the congressional national security committees and things of that nature, and they are still against the war. This is what the neocons want. And you could tell by listening to neocon Lindsey Graham yesterday, he was in love with this idea. He was so excited, and he was so proud of his president. So Rand Paul did a brilliant statement. I'm going to read it here because when it comes down to, I guess, congressional policy, Trump should listen to Rand Paul. He should have Rand Paul in his cabinet and just, for months, don't do anything unless checking it with Rand Paul first. See what Rand Paul suggests and go from there. Because he's going to lose a lot of his base. He already lost a lot of his base from this. First, Steve Bannon, which Steve Bannon said he's going to be helping Trump from Breitbart. But actually, same thing on here. Breitbart was angry about it. Let me see if I can find it here. An opinion piece at the one-time Lobby pro-Trump Breitbart News blasted the decision, saying, "I voted for Donald Trump because he promised change. I may have made a mistake. Should we retitle National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster as President McMaster?" And this is so true. McMaster is a neocon, great friends with McCain, great friends with Lindsey Graham. McMaster should be nowhere near Donald Trump. Donald Trump should not even listen to him. He should ignore him. He should fire him and kick him out. So this is a really bad decision for Trump to make. Very bad decision for Trump, but the neocons love it. The neocons love it. Opinion piece. Here's what Rand Paul said. The Trump administration is increasing the number of troops in Afghanistan and, by doing so, keeping us involved even longer in a 16-year-old war that has long since gone past its time. The mission in Afghanistan has lost its purpose, and I think it is a terrible idea to send any more troops into that war. It's time to come home now. Our war in Afghanistan began in a proper fashion. We were attacked on 9/11. The Taliban, who then controlled Afghanistan, were harboring al-Qaeda, and after being warned and after an authorization from Congress, our military executed a plan to strike back. Had I been in Congress then, I would have voted to authorize this military action. But as is typical, there was significant mission creep in Afghanistan. We went from striking back against those who attacked us, to regime change, to nation building, to policing their country for them. And we do it all now with an authorization that is flimsy at best, with the reason blurred, and the cost now unknown. We do it with an authorization that was debated and passed before some of our newest military personnel were out of diapers. This isn't fair to them, to the American people, or to a rational foreign policy. The Afghanistan war, going beyond its original mission, has an enormous cost. First and most important is the cost to our troops. Deaths, injuries, and unnecessary deployments causing harm to families are certainly the most important reason as to why you don't go to wars that aren't necessary. Then comes the taxpayer. We have spent over $1 trillion in Afghanistan and nearly $5 trillion on Middle East wars in the past 15 years. Would we not be better off with $5 trillion less in debt or using these funds in other more productive ways? Yes, we would be. We'd be far better off. Nation building should not be our job, and it has consistently been a fool's errand for us, particularly in this region. There is no reason to believe we can do it in Afghanistan, and certainly no reason to believe we can do it without a permanent, costly presence in the country. So I strongly disagree with the administration's actions here. I've spoken to the president, and I know he wants to end this war. We've all heard him say it, but talk won't get it done. Although I've been informed that the president rejected larger expansions of troops than the one announced this week, that's not good enough. He should have rejected this one and stuck to his principles. He knows this war is over, and he, unlike the last two presidents, should have the guts to end it for real on his watch. Regardless of the argument over the number of troops, I also will insist my colleagues take up a larger argument over the power to declare war. I believe we have allowed the executive to exercise far too much power in recent years. This is one of the reasons I objected just before the recess when the Senate moved to consider the National Defense Authorization Act. I have an amendment that I will insist be considered that would repeal the 2001 AUMF Act on Afghanistan. The AUMF is outdated, overcome by events, and provides a feeble bit of cover for people who still want to be there. If the President and my colleagues want to continue the war in Afghanistan, then at the very least Congress should vote for it. I'll insist they do this fall, and I'll be leading the charge for no. So after Bret Baier read that statement out, some of it, he didn't read the whole thing, to Lindsey Graham responded with, well, I will be leading the charge for voting yes, because this is a great thing. This is going to make us safer. We have to do this. It's like, no, Lindsey Graham, no neocon McCain, no neocon Rubio. No, we do not. We do not. We do not need more wars. The truth of the matter is, there is no end sight. There is no end goal for the Afghan war. It's going to drag out and drag out. It's already the longest war in American history. And it's going to continue to do so because there's always going to be terrorists in the Middle East. It doesn't matter how many bases you set up. The more bases you set up, the more resistance you will meet. Trying to fight Al Qaeda in Afghanistan, even though after Bin Laden is dead and most of Al Qaeda is actually dismantled, doesn't make us safer, actually. We already have the biggest military in the world, by far. Not just by a little bit, by far. We already are able to prevent any type of attack from us. Yet we want to invade more countries and want to start more war, all for the argument that it'll make us safer. People don't buy it, and people are upset with it. And Republicans, if they support this act, they're going to do poorly in the midterms. It doesn't matter how insanely asinine the left is becoming, how they want to take down statues of our founding fathers. Yes, you probably see a lot of them lose as well, but if the neocons continue to do what they want, you will also see many in Congress lose their seats. The neocons are winning the war. McMaster's is desperately happy over this, and we have to stop this because this isn't good. The war is money, so people need war. People need to feed the military-industrial complex. I disagree with it, but that's the way things are. And I'm done.